Okay, I'd like to call this meeting of the Johnson County Library Board of Directors to order. First thing up is the citizen comments. Sean and Michaela, do we have any citizen comments?
We have no citizen comment today.
All right, thank you. Next are the remarks. Members of the Johnson County Library Board of Directors. Does any of the Board of Directors have anything they'd like to say?
Nope.
All right. Next up, it's me. I guess we haven't had a meeting since Library Lets Loose, right? I don't think we have. Anyway, I attended the virtual event. It was great. I won a prize during the dance party, which was very exciting, and which was an original artwork from the Makerspace. So thank you to Stephanie and then Steph for delivering it. I was very excited. And although I have to admit, I did not get up and dance during the dance party. So maybe some of you did. I didn't. Next is the Friends of the Library. Christopher, are you reporting on behalf of the Friends?
I am indeed. Thank you very much for the opportunity to do that. There are 4 subjects in our report today, and I'll get right to it. The Friends are pleased to have received a Spark Small Business Working Capital Grant from the Kansas Department of Commerce for $20,000 during a year of depressed revenues because of the pandemic and shutdowns. It is really fortunate to have these funds to apply to payroll, utilities costs at the sorting center. And that's all due to the initiative and ambition and diligence of Shanta Dickerson, the operations manager. She's really a pistol, and we're lucky to have her. Internet sales continues to thrive. Of every 100 items listed, 80 are sold, and that's one of the virtues of our new listing and sorting software. Turnover rates have improved significantly among the volunteers with the change in the inventory management system as well, because it's not such an arduous task. Gross online sales were up 35% ahead of budget. So that's a really optimistic fact for us. I do not have, I'm sorry to say, an internet sales factoid for you, so I'll bring 2 next month. The Central Bookstore is closing. This Saturday is the last day. It's been the source of about 11% of annual revenue. The clearance sale has filled all available appointment slots for shopping during the open hours until closing, and we'll probably take some walk-ins on Saturday when we're there. And this is one of the very visible steps that the library is taking in the launch of the CBU2 project, physically and visibly at the building. Not everything donated to the Friends holds resale value, but some items are very curious and interesting, and we're able to find new homes for them. And in September, a volunteer discovered a 1969 docent study guide for gallery tours from the Nelson Atkins Museum of Art. And I just want to remind those of us who are around that that was 51 years ago. We reached out to the head of library and archives at the Nelson, and we donated the document, and it resides in the collection of the Spencer Art Reference Library at the museum now. So it's a nice relationship for us to maintain with one of our sister institutions here in the metro region. Respectfully submitted, Madam Chair. Stand for questions.
Anybody have questions for Christopher? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is the Johnson County Library Foundation report by Stephanie Stolzheimer.
Hello, everybody. It's a joy to be here and report on behalf of the foundation. Most of my report is about Library Lets Loose. And I have to tell you, the dance party gift prize winners, it wasn't rigged. It felt rigged. It was like, Amy wins. I'm like, what? We put donor names into this app, and and the wheel just spun and it stopped, and it's karma. I hope to think it's karma. If you're giving a lot, maybe you get a prize. So anyway, I'm very, it was really fun to have Amy win, and all of our winners. Everyone who gave to this event just surprised me, continuously surprised me. We're so grateful and thrilled to have had the support of sponsors, guests, donors. It was a free event, but we had 100 people make a donation with their free ticket. And people made live donations during the event. And we just didn't know. We thought we'll just put it out there and see if it'll work. And people just turned out. The library community showed up in force. And we were amazed at the guests who came. We're estimating we had over 500 people participate. That's just great. It was just really astounding. The number of sponsors, we had 44. We had 44 last year. And so people just turned up, and then we had people who made donations. And I will say it was a learning experience for us to do a virtual event. We learned how to produce online programming, and we had our fair share of technology issues. And we learned how library lovers extend grace, patience, and enthusiasm for trying something new. And the foundation staff and volunteers want to recognize how the event could not have happened without the library staff. We just had the makers created an entire project, an entire video. The youth services librarians did the kids programming room. Staff members took us on a library behind the scenes tour. Brian Behrens, Christopher Leach just jumped in, and Joseph Keene helped with our online programming technology, and the CX communications team just kept pushing the word out to support it. And then Tricia had she was on air talent with our celebrity reader series. And then Sean, of course, gave a really moving welcome piece. So I don't know how we do this without so many parts of the library. So thank you. That's really the gist of Library Let's Loose. We're planning for 2021 and looking at presumably virtual again. It could be a hybrid, but I'll be back to see if we need to get permission or the right way to handle the 2021 requests. And so in other foundation news, we have the annual appeal. The fourth quarter is traditionally a very powerful time for fundraising for not-for-profits. So we will have our annual appeal. It's a mailing and social media and just that fourth quarter push. And then we also have our board of directors for 2021. We're planning to have a new slate of officers. We'll bring on a few new board members, and we'll say farewell to some tried and true board members. And that is what we're up to. That concludes my report. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Stephanie.
Thank you, everybody. Yeah. Hey, Fabian.
Shepherd.
Hey.
Yeah, so my life's been kind of busy the last few weeks, and some recovery, but then some other stuff. And I was brokenhearted that I had to miss Library Let's Loose and the dance party. I'm glad Amy won, so she can fill me in on the highlights. You mentioned, and I missed this with Christopher, that our library patrons extend grace, patience, and enthusiasm for new things. Well, I'll have you know that they are not that enthusiastic about that store closing, because as soon as it was announced in the Shawnee Mission Post, I owe a friend a great deal of thanks for giving my phone number to people who wanted to talk about that.
Well, yeah, Christopher, I'm sure Christopher could jump back in for the store closing. Yeah, That's
I should have invited them to watch the dance party.
well, the dance party was fun. It was fun. But you know, in these times yeah, there are a lot of hard decisions are being made. And I think that the main reason why the store is closing at Central is because of the whole CBU2 initiative. And even I know Scott's here too. Scott can speak more to what all is happening with what's going on with that facility. But yeah,
Right. Thank you for everything you did with Library Let's Loose, though. I mean, thank you for all
sure.
that the foundation does.
It was our pleasure. It was our
Stephanie,
pleasure.
Stephanie, I do have a question. The three people dancing in the dance party, they must have been tired. They danced for an hour.
They did. They did. I was there. Yep, they were nice. They were fun.
Yeah, they were good.
And they lived together or something like they lived together. We're like, do they need to wear masks? And they were like, no, we don't have to wear a mask. So
Well, thank you very much. It was a very good turnout. I'm glad everything went well.
you're welcome. It was our pleasure. We'll be back in touch with 2021.
All right. All right. Next is the Board of County Commissioners, Janae Hanslick.
Thank you, Amy. Like the rest of you, I would like to congratulate Stephanie and the Library Foundation for a wonderful event. My favorite part were the celebrity readers. I think I spent all of my time in that room. As an opera lover, I was especially thrilled that Ben Bliss was one of our celebrity readers. So thank you for that opportunity. In terms of what's going on at the County Commission, next week, I was going to let you know that next week we will be voting on issuing the bonds for the Central Resource Library project in the amount of approximately $6.2 million. So that has moved along. That's kind of the final step here from the commission. So that's exciting that all of that business part will be taken care of, and we can move on to the real work of doing those updates. I did want to share something. You know, I usually like to mention what book I'm reading, but I wanted to take a couple extra minutes. I love collecting old books. I have the entire collection of old Nancy Drew books back to the 1930s. And recently I was in an antique store and I came across an old Sally, Dick, and Jane book. How many out there have learned how to read with Sally, Dick, and Jane? Well, interestingly enough, you know, there's been a lot of criticism of Sally, Dick, and Jane. It showed this white nuclear family, suburban, perfect life, pretty simplified. Well, I found a Sally, Dick, and Jane book, and much to my surprise and delight, actually, I found one that actually has an African-American family in it. I had not remembered that from my childhood books. So I did some research on it, came to find out that 1965 was the last year that the Sally, Dick, and Jane books were published. And it was in that year, finally, that they introduced an African-American family into the books. And when you think about what was going on during that time, the civil rights movement, and 1965 was only 100 years after the Civil War ended. So to me, it's very interesting that was when they introduced an African-American family, and it was the very last time they published the books. So I just wanted to share that. I thought it was fascinating, especially in some of our discussions of race and equity and diversity, to see what we learned from the history of books. So any questions, I'm glad to answer. Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you, Janae. All right, next up is Board Counsel Fred Logan.
This is Andrew Logan, Board Counsel. Fred is out of the office this week, so you all are stuck with me for the time being. I've been asked to update the board on two matters, the crisis management arm and an update on mask wearing. If there's no objection, I thought I'd start with the mask wearing just on a quick update and then move into the crisis management arm. As many of you may be aware, the mask wearing order remains in effect today. As of September 17, the Board of County Commissioners reaffirmed Governor Kelly's mask order. And just yesterday on October 7, the State Finance Council extended the emergency declaration until November 15. That had been set to expire on October 15. And so for the county's affirmation that it would remain in effect until either rescinded, the order would be rescinded, or until the emergency declaration expires. So that's been extended to November 15. Okay. And if there are no questions about the mask wearing order, I'll move on to the crisis management arm. This will also be a fairly brief update. We are just sort of introducing the topic. This is going to be discussed at the board retreat on October 22nd. So we just want to make you all aware that we've had preliminary discussions between staff and ourselves about bringing forth to the board a crisis management arm. A little bit of clarification as to what this arm would be. This is merely meant to be a framework that would bring together and clarify those legal authorizations that are already in place. If you think back to March 12, before COVID really changed things, before there were closures, if you'll recall, we updated you on some of the statutory and arm authorities that the library has, that the county librarian has, and that this board has with respect to managing the library in an emergency basis. Those are already in effect. They've been utilized by the library. The purpose of the crisis management arm is really going to be to take all of those various either statutory sites or arm sites and bring them into one place so that it's streamlined and so that the framework is clearer for everyone to see. So the purpose is not to change, but merely to reinforce and clarify what the crisis management policies of the library are. And we'll be doing it within the authorizations that already exist in statute and in arm. So there will be more information here when the board has its retreat on October 22. But I thought that would just be a kind of a little introduction for what you all can expect and what we'll be discussing then at the retreat. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is up is the county librarian report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have one question for Commissioner Hanslick, and I may have missed it. What book are you reading this month?
Oh, I am actually reading a book that was recommended to me by Joe Waters, The Great Influenza by John Barry. Fascinating, fascinating book. I highly recommend it. But thanks for asking.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm always interested in what you're reading, and that's just really topical. So
besides Sally, Dick, and Jane.
Yes, that's it, right. Yeah, and Julie Timmons and Jennifer are also commenting that that's a great book. So they've read it. At this point, I'd like to ask Dave Varatny to give the financial report, and then followed by Adam and Julie with core statistics and trends in learning and development. David?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Sean. Yeah, I'm going to guide you to page 9 of the report. It's my favorite page in the report here. This is the Johnson County Library Total Revenue Report. I think this page gives a pretty nice snapshot of where we are, or where we were, I guess, as the end of August. So we're about 67% of the way through the year. We've received approximately 90% of what we had anticipated to receive for the year. As you can see, about a little over 36.3 million of the 40.4 that we anticipate or were originally expecting to receive. And then if you go down to the expense all funds side, you can see that we've spent about 24.7 million has been encumbered in total as of the end of August, which is about 61%. So where we're still kind of lagging from a revenue standpoint in those, in particular, the library generated things that we would have had by way of copying and overdue fees and that sort of thing, we're more than offsetting from an expense standpoint. We're probably about a little more than 3% lower than where we would typically be at this point from a revenue standpoint, but from an expense standpoint, we're 6% under where we'd have expected to have spent. So we're making up for what we're not bringing in by not spending it. So with that, I'll stand for any questions, or if there's anything more that you'd like to have me cover, please let me know.
One of the things I will talk is that Dave and I went, and I think maybe Commissioner Hanslick was in attendance also at the MARC Regional Council, where economists shared the economic forecast for the metro region and talked a little about Johnson County in 2021, and it was very interesting. Johnson County is probably going to fare better than the surrounding counties just by the diversity of the workforce and income level. But they were predicting that jobs returning or people returning to the workforce would be slower than the original spike. And they predicted that the curve was more of a K shape than a V shape, and that we're seeing a tapering off, and that with their projections that we wouldn't be back to pre-COVID employment levels until 2025. As always, these things change as the forecast changes, more information comes in. But again, I think being conservative on our expenditures, particularly when we're looking back at motor vehicles and revenue that we've lost through printing, it's just something that Dave has been watching closely, and I continue to watch it closely as we get in, and the economic forecast for 2021 still is uncertain. Any questions? Sorry, Commissioner.
This is Janae. I was just going to mention too, as you said, that what we've seen so far, and we've talked about this before, that property tax revenue has been very steady this year. Now, who knows what will happen for December and May payments, but we actually did much better than we had potentially anticipated, which is good news for the library since that's the main source of funding.
Yeah, absolutely, it's a really good point. You've heard that the CARES additional funding is the president has said that he would like to wait before issuing additional funding till after the election. So again, with UCS and other departments, we'll continue to look at eviction rates in the county, and how does that affect the library? Well, people that are evicted tend to want to still have quality of life, and so they tend to use the library more, but they might use the library as a place to stay during the day until I can find affordable housing. So we don't have a clear picture of that yet, but just again, all of these types of things do affect library operations in ways that you wouldn't necessarily think. So we're on top of it, and I'm just moving forward. Hey, Adam, would you like to share the core statistics next?
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm Adam Wathen. I'm the Associate Director for System-Wide Services here at the library. And today I'll be presenting the core operational statistics and then a short report on reopening trends. And then Julie Timmons, our Learning and Development Training Specialist, will report on learning and development trends. And so this month, our core operational statistics include through the month of August. And as you can see, our digital usage still has a very significant increase over previous years, even though we had that bump when we saw our buildings closed, it has diminished slightly. We still see that that's a significant increase over previous years. 2020 is maintaining a strong increase over 2019 levels. Our physical circulation statistics continue to creep upward from our COVID closure toward 2019 levels. We still have some ground to cover, but we are getting closer to previous year's levels in circulation. And visitation is also increasing and closing the gap between this year and previous years. However, it's lagging significantly behind physical circulation. And Michaela, if you could scroll down to visitation to show that gap. Thank you. And do you have any questions on those before I transition to reopening trends? Okay. Michaela, if you don't mind jumping over to the PowerPoint. Thank you. So the first slide shows our checkouts, and you can see that individual users checking out is still 23% below 2019 levels, and our physical checkouts are similar, about 20% lower than the 2019 levels. The next slide shows our visitor levels, which are significantly lower than this. We still see a 49% lower visitation rate at our branches, and that speaks to also the trend line I showed you on the last set of data. Then on the third slide, it shows our holds, which continue to pace slightly above last year's levels. We see that despite the lower visitor rate, our holds delivery seems to still be very effective in connecting patrons with our materials. And finally, you can see that computer use continues to trend upward, but very slowly. It's not close to pre-COVID levels, still about 60% lower than it was in February. Do you have any questions about these reopening statistics before I turn it over to Julie?
Adam, this is Janae.
Yes.
Not to bring up a controversial subject, but I've had some folks ask me that if the library has a plan in terms of to continue to have materials on hold for 72 hours. Have we given that any thought as to how much longer that will go on, or are we waiting for particular data? I just would like to know how to answer those questions when I get them.
Just for clarity, are you talking about not holding, but about quarantining material?
Yes, quarantining, yes.
Yeah, the data has come in from the Realm study with OCLC. And when we just did a comparison looking at all regional libraries on a number of issues like browsability, computer use, and about quarantining, we are the most aggressive, and meaning that we quarantine our material for the least amount of time. When we look at other regional libraries, they're quarantining for up to 5 days. The Realm study showed that on certain surfaces, such as DVDs, that it was possible for the virus to live. We looked at that in comparison to what kind of viral load there is. The Realm study showed, particularly on certain surfaces, that there was virus, but we didn't feel that the virus load on that material was of any threat to the public. And so we've continued, and I think until we're through COVID, it would be my recommendation that we would continue to quarantine for 3 days. I think anything less than that, we we enter into a risky category of circulating books that would contain levels of the virus that were problematic.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate that. I will let people know who've asked that for the foreseeable future, we're going to continue with this same process. So thank you.
You're welcome. It's a great question, by the way, a really great question. If we could do away with quarantining today, we certainly would. I also want to kind of talk about the computer usage. Remember that we're at 60% where we were a year ago this time. But remember that we've taken approximately 50% of our computers out of service because of social distancing. And so I think the big thing is as we work with UCS and look at serving the community, that the unmet need is still out there. And we are part of a team or teams looking at ways that we can bridge that. And there are a couple of broadband initiatives out that the county is working on. So that's more for the library board. Adam, I'll just hand it back to you, or we can hand it off to Julie.
Okay, if there aren't any more questions, I'll hand it over to Julie Timmons.
Wonderful. Hello, Library Board and Company. I am Julie Timmons. I am a training specialist here at Johnson County Library. I've been with the library for 11 years, and I've been in this department for the past 5. And I am reporting to you today on trends in learning and development. This first chart that you can see shows the number of internal library training sessions that we offered to library staff and the number of staff attending those sessions. Attendance jumps in 2018 and 2019 correlate with our increased hiring to staff Monticello and then Lenexa City Center libraries. On the second trend, Michaela, I have broken those attendance numbers down into the 3 categories that we focus on most specifically. The first is organizational awareness, which includes our library new employee orientation, who, by the way, are joining us here today. So hello, Neo. Organizational awareness, excuse me, organizational awareness might also be department or location tours or overviews of our policies. The second set of lines there is interpersonal skill development, which includes development in teamwork, communication, leadership, and similar. The last category is technical skill development, and this includes training on technologies and job-specific skills. In 2018, the jump in organizational awareness training shows the onboarding and orientation of those Monticello and then Lenexa staff. And in 2019, you can see those same learners digging into their job-specific skills and library technologies in the red to the far right. You can see from this report that we focus primarily on organizational awareness in order to develop organizational culture in and for our staff. And then we follow that with the job-specific or interpersonal skills training. We saw returns on this organizational culture development work during this pandemic as library staff were able to weather a variety of incredible stressful situations together. The third trend, Michaela, second page. Thank you. The third trend shows the number of county level trainings that our staff attend. Library staff have access to both library training content and county training content. And county trainings might be as broad as supervisory training, benefits workshops, defensive driver training, or purchasing card trainings. A large portion of our county-related learning is a biennial, which means every other year, harassment awareness requirement. The bulk of our staff are on an odd year cycle in that, and so that means that they've completed harassment awareness training in 2015, again in 2017, and in 2019, so those numbers are higher than the ones next to them. One of our newer additions to our county training catalog is cybersecurity awareness training. We experienced our first cybersecurity awareness requirement in 2017, and then JCL was able to work with DTI In 2019, the Department for Technology and Innovation in 2019 to roll out a second cybersecurity requirement. We expect that to continue, and October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and so I wish everyone very much internet safety. Michaela, could you bring up the next slide? This one and the two following it show external training opportunities. We consider these in three groups, the first of which is conferences. Conferences are anything that include travel or overnight lodging. For example, a visit to another library system, a professional conference, or a workshop or certification held outside of Kansas City. Over time, we've been able to diversify the number of unique conference experiences that we are able to send our staff to. This helps build JCL because every diversity of information gives us broader perspectives, it makes us smarter and better able to serve patrons in the community. The next trend is in external events. These are similar to conferences, but without the lodging and travel. So it could be a local workshop, or it could be a national conference that comes to Kansas City. It might be the Kansas Library Association conference. Staff are encouraged to seek out external learning opportunities, and this grassroots method does not lean very easily towards data analysis or like a neat up and down chart. But my goal here is to get more staff exposure to more varieties of content. Michaela, may I see the third one? Thank you. This category for outsourced development includes anytime we hire outside consultants or professionals to train our staff. It might include purchases of like large-scale training software. In 2019, we brought in speakers on topics like mental health, programming, and Race Project KC. That is the end of my slides, but I am already excited for next year's Learning and Development Board report because I will get to report on the actions and reactions that our department had to COVID. And these include things like the technical and technological training support that we were able to offer staff as they were slammed very unexpectedly into remote work environments. I consider us to be very lucky that we have staff who could adapt to that, and I also think we're very lucky that we have the resources to support them. Next year, I will have statistics to show how we are taking advantage of virtual learning. We were able to buy access to the entire American Library Association catalog of sessions and share that widely among staff. Without lodging and travel this year, we expect to be able to send many more people to virtual KLA, the Kansas Library Association conference. And we've also seen many vendors and educators who, in order to continue reaching their customers, have moved their content online. We now have access to a wider variety of content and material, and our staff are brilliant at finding and sharing and then absorbing that information. And with that, I ask you for questions.
I just introduced, you talked a little about cybersecurity, and one of the things that we are working with, or going to be working with Andy and Fred, is talking to them about whether we should codify the cybersecurity report into our internet policy. I think it's important for the board to understand what we're doing on that front, and also to have the board to have a good idea of what our digital assets are and why someone might be wanting to go and access them. So those could be anything from credit card readers that we have, to our public computers, to our key card systems that allow access into our buildings and staff areas, to our camera systems, to our core business software, which is our catalog. All of those require, I've gone through an audit, and what we would like to do, and it may be in October because that is Cybersecurity Month, is to give the board at minimum an annual security report on how we are securing those assets from outside damage. People can often steal things for two reasons. They can steal it to destroy it. They can hold it hostage and ransomware, and there are lots of examples that you can see of municipalities that have experienced that. Or they can go ahead and corrupt the data over a period of time. All of this affects business continuity, and it's something I think we've been working on, but we haven't necessarily defined that in an ARM or brought that report yet, and that level of detail to the library board. I think we have given you a report on working with the auditor and DTI as far as securing cyber security issues, but I think we want to be able to give you specifics and statistics on that, and want to roll that into the statistic report. Does the board have any questions about cybersecurity? So that would be a goal. That would be a goal for 2021. At this point, I'd like to ask Scott to give us the update on the Comprehensive Library Master Plan.
Good afternoon, everybody. Scott Syme, Project Coordinator for the library. And today I'll go ahead and start with an update on the CSSC project. Okay, next slide, please, Michaela. So today I'll give you an update on design, a bit of an update on the some recent BOCC and PBC actions, talk a little about next steps, and give you an update on the overall timeline. Next slide, please. So a little bit about design. The architects have wrapped up the most recent phase of drawings. The layouts are becoming more finalized, and we've been getting into detail regarding changes to the layout of the collection due to a couple of new spaces. We've been continuing to develop interior finish details and looking also at security camera placement. And we're also working out some specific of what we're working on right now is working out how our external couriers and vendors will be admitted from the back loading area. Okay, next slide, please. Oh, that's too many, sorry, I went too fast. A little bit about recent things that have happened at the BOCC and Public Building Commission PBC meetings. In September, the BOCC voted an increase to the CSSC project related to the CRP work that we had talked to the library board about previously. So that was approved, and we're good to go there. On that same day, related to CSSC, the Public Building Commission authorized issuance of bonds and set the sale date for those bonds to be sold. Those are two big steps, big approvals that we're happy to have happen to allow the project to go forward. We are moving into the next phase of design, which is the construction documents phase. And that is meant to conclude design and get a final set of documents ready for bidding. We'll also start getting into furniture selection soon. A little bit about staff moves next. We're working on plans, continuing to work on plans for relocating our non-public service staff during construction. You may remember that we have a CSSC moves team, and that team is coordinating the work of who goes where and who and what goes where before and after construction. Also over at Central and Antioch specifically, a lot of clean out work is happening, decluttering work, and that'll continue through November. Okay, now I'm ready for the next slide, Michaela.
Shh, guys.
Okay, and this is our timeline slide. So we are at the red arrow, nearing the end of design, and there's no changes to this from last month. Any questions on the CSSC project? Okay, thanks.
Scott, this is Commissioner Hanslick. I just had a,
I'm busy.
and I apologize if you mentioned this and I missed it, but was there a decision made in terms of whether the library, part of the Central Resource Library is going to remain open during the upgrade, or are we going to be closing completely? Could you give us just a little update on that, please?
Sure, I'm happy to, yeah. So we will have a what I'm calling little central component of Central Stay Open for really the duration of construction. There's a little bit of time in there where the library will need to close due to some electrical, I think, and HVAC work that just needs to happen in the building. But yeah, we will have a little central up in the front of the building. Patrons will still be able to pick up their holds. We will have some public computer and printing access, and then patrons will also be able to return materials. And the Wi-Fi will be turned on. That front set of bathrooms will still be available too. Good question, thank you.
Thank you. You know, I think earlier, perhaps Dave or Sean mentioned the county's distribution of the federal COVID relief money, and part of the money budgeted for phase 2 is to help with digital access, including helping people who are unable to pay or afford digital access, internet access, but also helping people with computers. So I'm very excited about that because I know there are a lot of folks who really depend on the library for the computer access. So I am glad that that there will be at least a few computers available during the renovation, because I know there are folks who without that, they're really cut off from information. So thank you, Scott. I appreciate that update.
Sure thing. That was one of the pieces, the computers specifically, was one of the pieces that we heard at a previous board meeting, I think from you, Commissioner, and from maybe a couple other board members. So we wanted to make sure to include that in the Little Central. Okay, I think I'm ready to go on to my next agenda item here, which is a BOCC and PBC update on the Antioch project. So some good news there. A couple of weeks ago too, out at the Board of County Commissioners, they approved and ratified the addendum to our property conveyance agreement, which the library board did a few months back. And that is required by the BOCC just because it involves the acquisition of land. Also, the Public Building Commission on that same day created the project account for the Antioch replacement project and also authorized the issuance of bonds. So some great news there. Okay, and Michaela, I think I'm ready for the overall timeline slide. And you can go on to the second slide there when you get a chance. So what we're seeing on the capital improvement projects timeline slide is no changes since last time. And that's all I have to report on the capital improvement projects.
Yeah, as you can see, and just again, making people aware that we're coming up onto the Rural Renewal Initiative study. This will be something I'll be talking about in more detail with the board at the retreat. But just to remind everyone that the money that we've been saving in reserves is for this unfunded opportunity to update and reimagine the two libraries, which one is in Spring Hill and the other is in DeSoto. This is something that we've wanted to do for a while, and I think we can talk about it in more detail at the retreat. At this point, I'd like to ask Nancy and Jennifer to kind of give us an update on the reopening team and work that's being done on that area.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jennifer Munkin. I'm the Associate Director for Branch Services. Can everybody hear me? Okay. My face isn't popping up on the screen, so I'm concerned. So today we're going to talk about three things. Michaela, you can go to the next slide. We're going to touch on Curbside and how that's going. We're going to touch on staffing, and we're going to touch on what other libraries are currently doing. Michaela, you can go to the next slide. So our Curbside pickup is been implemented at 3 locations, Cedar Row, Gardner, and Leawood. Those locations were chosen strategically to try to get to all the corners of the county where there weren't already drive-through services available at our locations. So we added these 3. As you can see from the numbers, then they are starting to pick up. The service is becoming more popular, and we're excited that patrons are starting to use it. We anticipate also as the weather starts to get colder and a little messier that those numbers will continue to increase. Michaela, you can go to the next slide. The next slide has to do with staffing. So as Sean, I think Tricia mentioned in the chat, we do have new employees that are with us online tonight. I believe there's 10 people with us tonight. We have hired a total of 15 clerks, and some of them started this week and some of them will start at the beginning of November in their new positions. We've also been working on hiring youth and adult information specialists, and those folks will start in November as well. We're really excited to have them on board and get them promoted into their new positions. We did have more than 57 applicants for these jobs, and 2 of those were outside of Johnson County Library within the county, but the rest were internal candidates to the library. And staff did interviewing through Zoom calls. They did it all virtually rather than in person to maintain everybody's safety, and that went really well. There was no issues with that. For the information services, they conducted 44 phone interviews and narrowed the pool to a round of 13, and they are working on finalizing those hires at this time. Something I wanted to add a note here. Every day I receive at least one notification that some staff has been quarantined due to exposure to the virus. This is happening all over the system. In fact, I've just received 3 notifications within the last 30 minutes of staff who have been exposed to the virus and are having to quarantine for up to 2 weeks, depending on their symptoms. That is making it very difficult for us to get to a stable staffing number because there's no predictability to it whatsoever. And it happens all over the system. There's no rhyme or reason to who gets exposed or anything like that. So I wanted to say to the board that we will not be bringing a recommendation to reinstate hours, probably at least until January, in hopes that we get a vaccine, in hopes that the virus gets under control, in hopes that we get a more stability. But I just wanted to say that because of that instability, we're not able to offer any more hours at this time. Are there any questions about that before we go to our final slide?
I just have a quick question, and everything that you're saying makes absolute sense. We're seeing that across the county. Are these people on furlough? How are we handling our employees and pay and that sort of thing?
They continue to be paid even though they're on quarantine. They either use emergency sick pay leave through the county, or they use vacation or sick leave that they have accrued if they've already used their emergency sick pay, but they are still getting paid.
Thank you. Thanks for the update.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, Michaela, our last slide then, please. So here you can see what other libraries in the metro area are doing. You can see that JCL continues to offer more services and access to our patrons than most of our fellow metro libraries. We do continue to evaluate and discuss when we can begin to lift more of our restrictions. So for example, we're talking about now, is it at all feasible to bring back tables and chairs for people to come and sit? So we're having that conversation. We don't have any recommendations at this time, but we continue to talk about it Every couple of weeks, we have a meeting with our reopening team to discuss and see what's safe and what we can do to continue to keep our patrons safe and our staff safe. But as you can see from this, we are offering more services and more access than anybody else in the metro area right now. So we're happy to do that and continue to evaluate as we move forward. Are there any other questions I can answer for you all tonight regarding reopening?
Yeah, I think just the bottom row for Commissioner Hanslick, this was the report I was referring to, and you can see the kind of quarantine times that our regional libraries are doing, and we're still at 3 days, which is, I think, is normal when you look at this nationally. We're seeing that a lot of libraries set on 3 days and didn't make a change. Some did, but a lot didn't.
Hey, Jennifer, on the computers, I thought, are we seeing a wait time, or are we seeing any problems with that? Are we having to kick people off after, is it 70 minutes? Is that right? I mean, is that a problem at all, or?
It is a little bit of a problem. We don't have wait times. There are not lots of people coming in to use the computer. We have people bringing in their own laptops and sitting near the, on the computers where there's a vacant carrel, and we have to monitor that. We do ask people to leave after about an hour if they've been there, even on their own device, just as a safety measure. Like exposure and duration is one of the metrics that we use and are trying to maintain. We have patrons who come in and they get a guest pass, and then their guest pass will expire, and then they'll log in with their own library card. So they are technically going around the system. And so if we see that, we're asking them to leave as well. So there are people who are desperate to try to come in and use our computers. I know some libraries have recommended that patrons are welcome to go outside the library. If Gardner, for example, has a picnic table outside, so does Blue Valley. So we encourage patrons to go out there and sit and use the Wi-Fi where that's available. But we're trying really hard not to let them linger in the library.
Thanks. One other question. I was walking out of the library, and the person I think just randomly asked me if we were having, if there was a limit to coming in, and I knew there wasn't, but have we noticed that there's been a problem that we think they're too crowded, that people aren't social distancing? I haven't seen any in the times I've been in the library, but just curious on the other libraries.
I don't think so. Incident reports don't indicate that. Our latest incident reports indicate that students would like to be back in the library. We've had some incidents at Monticello where they try to sit on the floor and pull out their laptops and work, and we're asking them to leave, unfortunately. I mean, that's what we need to do. It's unfortunate that we can't offer that service at this time. But for the most part, people are complying. And I am told that the average computer session is about 35 minutes for most people. So we just have a few outliers.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anything else I can answer for you all?
Hey, thanks, Jennifer. This is a really great report. I want to talk a little about the election ballot boxes. The election office asked if we would like to partner with them, working with the county to have, I think it's 6 or 7. I can't actually remember which number. Juan, was it 6 or 7 boxes?
Juan, it's 7. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Juan.
Oh, I'm sorry. I understand, Juan. It's just six boxes.
6 boxes. And Juan, your impersonation of Tricia is truly outstanding. So,
oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm teasing you. I'm teasing you. So we have six of these at 6 of our locations. These election boxes are secured to the ground. And then what we have done working with the election office and the sheriff office is to actually install cameras that can be monitored by the sheriff's office to see if there's anything nefarious or is happening with those. I think this is a great partnership. The library is perfectly distributed through the county, and what we're really doing is providing access to people so they can drop off their ballot, that they can be safe. And I just feel I'm really thrilled that the election office thought of us, thought to reach out to us, and that we are working with the sheriff's office to make the election go smoothly for the citizens of Johnson County.
Sean, this is Amy.
Yep.
How often are those going to be picked up? Is it a daily pickup from the boxes, or do you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's really up to the election office. I think what they're going to do, if you look at, what was it? I think I saw early voting. At this time yesterday, we had, this time last year, 75,000 people had done advanced voting. And now we're looking at, I think it's 5.6 million. People are advanced voting at a level that we have not seen across the country. I think the election office is going to have to figure out how quickly those boxes fill up. And as we get closer to the election, we may find that they're having to do 2 pickups a day. For us, they're outside the building. We provided the building, we've provided the space and the ability to work with them and facilities to connect the cameras, but we didn't get into the details of how often you're going to be doing this, picking those up, and yep.
Oh, this is Janae Hanslick. I was just talking with Connie Schmidt, the election commissioner, this morning, and she mentioned 3 times a day. Because
there you go.
Staffing for the election office, and that's going to require more staff time from their office. So that's what she had mentioned, was 3 times.
Yep. Thank you, Commissioner. That's really helpful. Are there other questions about that? I will say that once the election is over, the boxes will be removed, given back to the election office. This came in as a part of a project from the state, and so the election office received these election boxes from the state, and so it's unclear to me whether they go back to the election office and are housed there, or they go back to the state. But once they're removed from library property, we will fill in the holes within the concrete with caulk and then concrete over. The cameras will remain in place just as we, just for future elections. We may find that election boxes are just become normal business, and the library is happy to partner with both the sheriff and the elections office going forward. Any questions about that? Okay, on to the next one. We had the opportunity to meet with Chairman Eilert and Commissioner Hanslick yesterday and the Friends of the Johnson County Library, and we stepped them through the Lackman, Friends moving into the Lackman location, and the various scenarios between converting that into a bookstore, looking for lease space, or selling the building. One of the things that came out of this, or the next step we wanted to take, was really to do a study session with the entire commission to get their thoughts and feedback, and to make them aware of what we had, the work we had done on that project. Since we're so close to the election, and we do have 3 commissioners that, 3 commission positions that are on the ballot, we thought, just timing-wise, it made a lot of sense to do the study session in January after January, once the new commissioners are signed in. And so what we're doing at this point is just pumping the brakes, waiting till the election is over, and then waiting till the new commissioners are signed in, and then allowing them to have that information sharing session with them. And so we had said that we were bringing the Lackman decision back to the board in November. That will probably be closer to February. Are there any questions or concerns with that? We will be moving people into that building from Central before then, just as we're needing to move people out of Central, staff out of Central for the Central staff space consolidation. Okay, the next issue is the Corinth condensing unit. Those are failing and need to be repaired. It's always within a building that you're looking to replace. You're looking to just kind of mitigate huge expenditures on big items such as boilers and chillers. We need to do this work just so the library continues to function, but we're looking to do that with minimal expenditures. Okay, the next issue is budget arms overview, and so we will be meeting October 21st, and we'll be doing that virtually for the budget committee to meet, and for David and I to go over the budget. It's one of 4 meetings that we have, and that's in our arms. So we'll be meeting that obligation and providing you information with the 2021-2022 budget, and we'll go into more economic forecasting, revenue projections, and expenditure projections. There are a couple of things I want to give an update on, which is the security guards that we talked about. We continue to see the public refuse to wear masks. And if many of you are probably aware, there was a kidnapping attempt on the Michigan governor that was caught by the FBI today, and I think it was 13 individuals were arrested, which is very unusual. They were involved with the militia and had plans to destroy her vacation home and then put her on trial for treason. It will just give you a kind of a temperature of the tenor of the country of what we're going through, and I think having security guards here is proving to be a good decision. The security guards won't be armed, but are trained and will be able to deal with any patron conflicts that we have and support staff going forward. That concludes the County Librarian's report.
Thank you, Sean. Next up is the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Anyone?
So moved.
How about a second?
David.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, under new business, we have the consideration of rescheduling the November 11th, 2021 library board meeting to November 10th, 2021 due to a conflict with Veterans Day. So not this year, but next year. I won't be here, so it's up to you guys.
So again, this is just a conflict on Veterans Day. We're closed, and we just need to move the board meeting. We thought it made sense to move it to a Wednesday rather than moving it to the Friday, unless, of course, you enjoy meetings on a Friday afternoon.
I'll make a motion to move the board meeting.
I'll second.
November 11th.
Any more discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next, our old business is consideration of memorandum of understanding between Johnson County Library and Lenexa Baptist Church. We've talked about this previously. Sean, do you want to fill us in there?
Sorry, we're granting the Lenexa Baptist Church rights to use the parking lot. We're specifying that and worked with Fred and Andy on this agreement. It's gone back and forth. Again, the agreement came to us right before COVID came out, and I think churches have and their congregations have been doing a lot of the services outside or finding new or online. But this is just formalizing that relationship. And I support this. I support this initiative, and if you bring a motion, I support the motion going forward.
I can move it. Brandy, I move the Library Board of Directors approve the parking lease agreement between Johnson County Library and the Lenexa Baptist Church.
Fabian Shepherd, second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries. I do have a question. Is the board retreat on the 22nd?
Yes, and I apologize. It just, again, we'll be meeting with the committee on the 21st and then meeting with the board on the 22nd. I also had forgotten, there's one thing I had forgotten to mention, which was Commissioner Hanslick had met with the Friends and the bookmark winners and took a really great photograph with them last Saturday out in front, and everyone was socially distanced. And I want to say thank you to Christopher for doing that work and coordinating that. Is a little unusual, and we love to have the winners of the bookmark competition meet all the board members and and celebrate them, but we adapted and overcome and kind of memorialized that. But with some of you on the board, I will be meeting with you 2 days in a row.
So the budget committee is on the 21st.
Yes, that's correct.
And the retreat is on the 22nd from
The
3 to 7,
22nd.
right? 3 to 7?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. And is the budget committee, is that going to be via Zoom?
It's going to be via Zoom, yes.
And then the retreat will be at Central, probably in Carmack?
Yes, it'll be in Central and Carmack, and we will, everyone will be socially distanced. We will be bringing in people who are doing presentations will be coming in and leaving, again, to keep the number down. And Denise McNerney, who many of you are familiar with from iBosswell, will be doing the facilitation.
Okay, good. All right, anyone else have anything else to say?
Hey, Sean, for the retreat, can we go ahead and put in the order for the beef Wellington now, please?
Well, yes. If you would enjoy a beef Wellington, we generally offer steak and lobster. But if that is not to your liking, no, we will be having. Michaela will be sending out a menu, and we're going to go with our normal tradition of boxed Panera bread sandwiches or salads. So you'll have a wide selection, but unfortunately, there will not be any beef Wellingtons.
Good try, Fabian.
Good.
I heard Commissioner Hanslick had a new credit card, so I thought we could give it a.
It's new. That's news to me.
That's news to me too. I don't have anything like that from the county.
Okay, well, on that note, I guess I just need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you very much, everybody. We'll